What's going on, everybody? This is Sorare Teacher here. Now, over the last few weeks, I've noticed that there's been a huge spike in Sorare users. The user base has pretty much been taking off like a rocket. So, what I want to do for the next few minutes is talk about 5 key tips and strategies that you can use to be a better Sorare user and hopefully win some rewards down the road. So, number one, you definitely need to make a plan before you buy your first silver card. When you join silver, the first thing you might be thinking about is, oh man, I want to buy this player and I love this player. This player's really cool. That is not the way you win rewards in this game. First thing to figure out is what can you afford to invest and what can you afford to lose in case the platform doesn't really take off down the road, in case it collapses like Football Index did in the past. So you gotta really figure out your own budget. Now, once you figure out a budget, you then have to figure out what kind of cards do I actually want to use? Do I want to buy limited cards? Do I want to buy rare cards and rare competitions? What is my goal here? If your goal is to just have some fun, use players that you know about, that you really like, that are popular, then I highly recommend going for the limited cards because they're much cheaper. If you want to maybe get some more expensive cards, get a chance to grind the threshold, which is essentially just free money every week or every other week, as long as you can score 250 points or higher, then I definitely recommend going for rare cards. But again, this all comes down to the budget that you're willing to start with, that you're willing to invest, and that you're willing to or be able to afford to lose in case things go south. And then lastly, you got to figure out whether or not you want to play stacks or not. And when I say stack, I mean players from the same team who might have some correlation defensively or offensively. Now, by far the best strategy is to simply just use the 5 best players that you can get. It's been proven time and time again to be better than stacks. However, if you're a player on a budget, stacks can actually be a very budget friendly option. If you get players from a middle of the road team or from a lower end team and you stack them together, well, let's say that team has a really good week, 1 week, and those players do really well, that might actually put you in the running for a good reward in that given week. So you're kind of gambling essentially on whether or not that team can have a good week every once in a while. So you got to figure out based on your budget what regions you want to play in, what kind of cards you want to use, and how much money you're willing to invest to start planning a strategy. Because you have to come in with a strategy for which cards you want to buy and what divisions you want to play in and how you want to play those divisions with a stack or not a stack. Second, you got to use the resources available to you. There are plenty of resources available to make it easier to scout players, figure out who to buy, figure out who to avoid. And here's just a handful of those. Sorare Data by far is the best tool around. If you haven't used it yet, it pretty much shows you how much players cost, their performance in Sorare, their trends in terms of their price. It's kind of a one-stop shop for a lot of information you need to make sure the Sorare player you're buying is actually good on the platform. The Sorare Discord is really popular. I have a lot of people who talk about players, who give you information about transfers. Transfermarkt is amazing in terms of trying to figure out how important a player is to a team. You know, the number of minutes they play per game, the number of games that they start or are subbed into, how long their contract is lasting, so their contract expiration dates is on there. So really important to show you some more in-depth stuff about how important that player is to their particular team. FBref, if you've seen any of my previous videos, you've seen me use FBref. It shows you really, really in-depth stats, as well as allowing you to compare those players to other players within the same position. If you want to see how the player stacks up to other forwards or midfielders or fullbacks, you can do that on FBref. And then lastly, and maybe the most important in terms of scouting players, especially players who might be under the radar, or just simply local newspapers, Twitter reporters, beat reporters, guys who are on the ground and can sort of break stories about who is going to be important in the next season, who might be coming up in the wings in the youth team. So definitely want to follow local papers, local reporters, and local Twitter sources if possible. Third, in order to be successful at this game, you have to understand the scoring matrix that Sorare uses. If you've ever played daily fantasy soccer or if you've ever played FPL, those have much different scoring systems. So you got to understand this one that uses decisive scores, which are major events in the game, such as goals scored, assists, clearances off the line, clean sheets, and then something called an all-around score, which is kind of their performance throughout the game, such as passes, fouls, things like that that can sort of affect how the game goes. So you have to really understand how this game works, and there's also the players who benefit from this scoring system. Some positions do really, really well, like center backs, and some positions do very, very poorly, like fullbacks, based on how different things are scored in the game, like possession lost, possession won, duels, saves, things like that. So you have to understand how the matrix works. If you don't understand it, definitely recommend you look at Sorare's Medium articles, because in the Medium website, they definitely go into more detail about how it works and the intricacies of their scoring system. Fourth, maybe one of the most important ones, especially if you want to be flipping cards on the Sorare market, is knowing when to buy and when to sell. Now, from my point of view, from my perspective, and I know Sorare is only a couple of years old at this point, it seems that the best time to buy cards is towards the end of a season, but not after the season. In my experience, it seems like most people are sort of offloading when there's a couple months left in the season, and then once the season's actually over, that's when people are starting to plan their rosters for the upcoming season. So prices already start to go up when the season ends and shortly after the season ends. So you definitely want to be a buyer towards the end of a season, not once the season is over, because when prices seem to be going up the fastest. You also want to be buying players when they're not playing, when they're either injured, when they have an illness, because that's when prices actually go down and you can get those same players on a discount. One of the big things about Sorare is that people like to move on from players very quickly when they know that they cannot use those players in the next game week. However, if you're willing to be a little more patient, you can have those players in your gallery for some time. That is an excellent time to pick up those players when other people are selling them. They're panic selling so they can get another player in their gallery that they can use the following game week. So definitely want to buy low on players who are injured or who are ill, and then you can sell high when they come back from injury or illness. And lastly, from this particular point, take advantage of rumors. You can see the graph here on the screen. That's actually the price of Adam Buxa over the last several weeks. Now, if you haven't been paying attention to the MLS or the New England Revolution, Adam Buxa, who was their star forward, was recently linked to going to Serie B, to Pisa, which is not covered by Sorare and means he would effectively be useless as long as he plays in Serie B for Pisa. And so as you can see, his price about mid-January dropped. A lot of people got discounts on Buxa because people were selling him essentially in a panic. However, the story about him going to Pisa didn't pan out. The rumor turned out to be not true, or Revs were not willing to sell them Pisa, one of those things. But in essence, he's staying in New England. There's no indication that he's leaving before the transfer window right now. And so because of that, his price shot up and is actually currently at all-time highs. So if you knew that this was just a rumor, if you could sort of follow rumors, you can actually buy players low, get them on discount when other people panic sell, get people before they actually have a confirmed move, and their price will shoot up after their confirmation goes through. Then you can actually get a pretty good discount on players or sell them for a quick profit after they're transferred to a better situation. And then lastly, and I know this kind of is a no-dust situation, but you want to keep your best players. I think there's a big temptation with new players in Sorare to simply sell off their best players when their price goes up because of their performance. But if your goal is to win cards rather than just flipping cards, you got to keep your best players. I know people might think, well, if my player becomes really valuable, maybe I can sell them and I can buy 2 players or 3 players for the price of that one card that I just sold. And yeah, diversifying sounds great, but quantity does not win you cards. Quality is what wins you cards week in, week out. What I would recommend that you do as a newer user is focus on just 1 or 2 regions to start with. Okay, buy cards, focus on just that particular region. And as you win cards, as you win ETH in the threshold, okay, as you win rewards, use those rewards to diversify into other regions and to accumulate more cards that you can use in those different regions. So focus on a region, and then once you get some rewards in that region, you can then sell those. You can use the ETH threshold rewards. They can buy cards in the regions, sort of start spreading out, and hopefully grow your gallery and grow your rewards accumulation that way. So these are my 5 tips to really get started to be a successful Sorare user. If you like this content, please like it, subscribe. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. And I will see you next time on Sorare Teacher.